Hey, hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus Cornix, and welcome to Colosimo Rambles, where I talk about all movies that I found in my closet while cleaning. This week's movie is Grave of the Fireflies, and it's a war drama by Studio Ghibli that was made in 1988, and it's about 1 hour and 30 minutes long, and it's about the bombings of Japan during the Second World War. And the movie starts with the main character of Seta explaining that he died on the 21st of September 1945, and then seeing his lifeless body in, I think it's a subway setting, and a cleaner comes to pick up his body, and on his person there is this canister, like it's actually a container for candy, and the cleaner kind of disposes it. And from the distance, Setsuko and Seita are looking. So Seita is the older brother, and Setsuko is his younger sister, and they're watching this in spirit form, so they have already passed away, and they are surrounded by these fireflies, which become important later in the story. And they board a train to somewhere. And then cutting to what happened earlier, there's the first air raid, I guess, and there's some bombs falling, and Setsuko is about to get dressed, and they're about to go to the bomb shelter, but they're late. So they actually run down, and there's some bombings, and there's all this chaos going on, and people just running. But they eventually get down to the waterfront, and so what happens is that the little girl, Setsuko, has lost one shoe, and it's kind of this chaotic moment, and Seta kind of washes his face, and later they go to a shelter, to a school. And basically everything is a chaos and a wasteland, and they're just trying to survive at this point. So they go to this place, and Seta gets called into a temporary hospital where they find their mom all wrapped in bloody bandages. She is badly hurt, badly injured, and Seta kind of tells Setsuko that their mom is just very sick, but he believes that she will be fine. And then, of course, Setsuko, which is like a very small girl, she starts to cry. And this is a real emotional thing, because part of this actually happened to the people of Japan during this time. So a little bit later, their mom passed away, and the body is burned. And Setsuko asks Seta what happened to the mom, and he lies to her and tells her that she is really sick and they can see her later. And this is actually the second time he lied to her, because he didn't want to hurt her feelings or make her even more sad. So the next day, or the same day, they go to see some relatives, in relation to the family, and this old lady and an old man. And even later, Seta goes to his old house and digs up a supply box in the garden that they kind of pre-buried before the war. And there's also these supplies, and there's it's a can of candy, which he puts in his pocket, and that's the one he had at the beginning of the movie, which is actually at the end of the movie. And then he delivers it to their family. And this good they actually have food, because during the wartime they were actually rationed food, and there's a limited amount of food that what they actually could get. And then Seta kind of tells the old lady that they're staying with, their mom is dead. And then the next day it's raining, and the old lady kind of asks if he has heard anything from his father, and he says no, it has been 10 days almost. And Seta's father is actually a military man in the fleet. And what they don't know is that he actually has passed away, because there's nothing left of the fleet anymore. The Americans kind of bombed it all. But anyway, they go out. Setsuko and Seta goes out at night and see fireflies. They're everywhere. There are lots of them. And then there is another air raid, and their sirens kind of blast off. And later they go down to the sea to swim and have some fun, and they play along and they're having fun. And then Seta has a flashback to when he was like with his family and everything was fine. And I think maybe it was before this scene, but actually Setsuko finds a dead body in the sand, and she doesn't really understand the whole meaning of death and everything. And then he snaps out of the whole thing because there's another air siren. They have to run home and basically take cover. And then later they sell their mom's kimono, which is this really nice kind of clothing that females and male have. They sell it to get some rice, and Setsuko gets kind of sad about this because it's her mom's, because she still believes that her mom is alive, but she isn't. So they sell it off, and they get lots of rice for it, so they have some food at least. And then the old lady, the relative, kind of treats them unfair because she wants them to earn their worth, and not because they're mostly just lying around and not doing anything. And but even though she's technically eating the rice that they paid and the supplies that they would take in from their parents' supplies from their house, I don't know why she's treating them really unfair. And then Setsuko and Seita goes to the city, and they find out that their mom and dad has some money stashed away in a bank, so they get some money out and they buy supplies. So they kind of talk to each other, and they realize that they might not be able to, or they can actually just skip this old lady if they want to, because she's being so unfair to them. And then Setsuko has some hard time sleeping because she's thinking about her mom and being gone and everything. And then there is a new air raid, and the next day they find a mine when they're out playing and looking. And then they decide like they can move out there if they want to. They don't have to stay with this lady. So they buy food with the money, and they go through the ruins and find usable stuff to decorate their cave/mine with. And then later at night they capture some fireflies because they don't have any lanterns or oil to burn. So they use the fireflies to actually see in the dark. And in the next morning, this is a really sad scene. Setsuko is burying the fireflies because fireflies don't have a very long lifespan. They maybe live like 1 or 2 days. So she's burying them, and Seta is kind of weird. I think it's kind of strange. But then Setsuko tells him that the old lady told her that their mom was already dead, which is a very cruel thing to say to a child like that. And then Seta kind of loses it and starts to cry. And then Setsuko kind of says something like, why doesn't fireflies last as long? And it's a very sad scene. It's very insightful about things because people are dying right and left, and there's a war situation, and life isn't valued that much. It's kind of a sad thing. And later some guys check out their little mine when they're gone, and then they're out in an open field, and they get attacked by American fighter jets, and they dive into these it's a tomato plantage or something, and they eat some tomatoes, and they grab some other stuff too. But there's a police officer or a military man that realizes that they've been stealing food from other people, but he doesn't do anything because he probably pities them because it's war times and everything is as hard as it is. But then Setsuko gets sick, and she has diarrhea, and she needs to eat more food because she is already starving as it is. So Seta goes out and tries to steal some food to keep her alive, basically, and he gets caught by a farmer, and he gets beaten senselessly, and he gets dragged to the police office, where the police officer kind of says that the boy's had enough beating for one day, and it's kind of weird that you kind of abuse this boy so much. So he lets the boy go, the policeman that is, and he offers him some water. And then he returns to the cave, and there are more air raids, and Setsuko gets more sick, and he eventually takes her to a doctor, and the doctor says that she needs nourishment and more food. So what he does, he leaves her in the cave alone. She's already as weak as she is, and he goes to the city to get to find some more food or whatever. And when he returns, she has passed out in the grass, but she's alive and she's very, very weak. And she doesn't want him to leave. She wants him to stay, but he's persistent to just get some food. So he goes to town and take out the last kind of food or the money in the bank from his mom, and he buys a lot of food like melons and everything that she actually wanted to eat. And he returns to the cave and she's so weak that she can't even eat. And I think you already know where this is going, but I'm gonna continue on anyway. And she eats a bit, and then he's about to cook rice or something, and then she falls asleep and she never wakes up. And during this time also he realized that actually while he was gathering money from his account, that Japan actually lost the war, and there's nothing left of the fleet, and his dad kind of died. So at this point all of his family members are dead, and he's not going to go back to that abusive relative lady. So what he does with the last of the money he has, he buys some firewood, and he goes to cremate his own sister, which is super sad. And he collects the bones, or ashes and bones, what's left of her, into this little can of candy, and he keeps it as a memento. And he never returned to this cave, obviously. And the movie kind of ends with them actually looking back on the whole thing, both him and his sister, and they're surrounded by fireflies, and they're looking at the cityscape in the background. So what do I think of this movie? It's one of those movies that I think you have to watch, and it's very sad, but it's also a real thing that actually happened, and it's part of Japan's history actually. And I don't think this movie even mentioned the bombings of the Nagasaki and Hiroshima and whatnot, of other atrocities that happens during the war. But it's a short movie, and you sure watch it because it has some value in it. And it's always one of those movies that I don't really want to watch because it's so terrible, because Studio Ghibli is usually known for making happier and more chirpy kind of movies, but this is a real sad one. But anyway, thanks for watching and listening, and take care.